She has one eye, the left one is gone. The forest in Kochevsky Rog is silent and frozen. German patrol boots crunch through frost somewhere in the tree line ahead. She doesn't hesitate, she moves anyway. A Wehrmacht marksman settles behind his scope on the ridge above. He picks up a figure moving low through the pines. She is 18 years old. She carries a partisan rifle. Her left eye socket is still raw, torn open by shrapnel 3 months earlier. He steadies his breathing. He fires. The round bites into a pine trunk 2 feet behind her. She is already somewhere else. He racks the bolt. He fires again. He misses. He cannot understand it. A target that small, moving that slowly, should not be alive. But he doesn't know who she is. He has no idea what she survived to get here. Her name was Albina Mali. She was born on the 12th of September 1925 in the village of Vinica in the Slovenian countryside. She was one of 8 children born to a shoemaker and a laborer. The family was poor in the way that requires no explanation and leaves no room for complaint. Her father worked leather until his hands cracked. He grew sick. In 1934, when Albina was 9 years old, he died. That was the end of stability. The family moved first to Jurka Vas, then to Brezova Ribur. Albina left school and found work wherever she could. She cleaned. She cooked. She carried what needed carrying. She attended school at Dolnji Ajdovk whenever her circumstances allowed it. She graduated in 1941. It was the last ordinary thing she would do for years. Before the war, Slovenia was a land of alpine quiet and deep forest. Church bells rang on Sundays. Bread came when the harvest came. The mountains of Lower Carniola rose around life like walls, narrow and familiar. Children's voices filled the clearings in the long summer evenings. The world Albina grew up in was narrow, but it felt solid. It felt like it would last. It would not last. On the 6th of April, 1941, Germany bombed Belgrade without a declaration of war. The Kingdom of Yugoslavia was struck from every direction at once. Germany, Italy, Hungary, and Bulgaria invaded simultaneously. The Yugoslav army collapsed and surrendered 11 days later. What came next was not occupation. It was dismemberment. Germany seized the north and the west of Slovenia. Italy took the south. The Slovenes were not treated as a conquered people to be administered. They were treated as Germans who had not yet been corrected. Nazi administrators arrived in Ljubljana with a program of cultural erasure. The Slovenian language was banned from public life. Streets were renamed in German. Slovene families were expelled from their homes to make room for imported German settlers. In Lower Carniola, where Albina lived, Italian fascist administrators imposed their own system of checkpoints, curfews, and informants. Young men were seized for forced labor or conscripted into armies they wanted no part of. Anyone who organized resistance disappeared. Albina was 15 when this began. She was 16 when she decided she had seen enough. In the summer of 1941, she joined the National Liberation Movement. Her trainer was a partisan named Herman Henningman from Dolenj Toplis. He taught her the network. He showed her the routes and the people and the signals. Her first assignment was courier and liaison, moving messages between Novo Mesto and the partisan encampments at Brezova Ribur. This was not romantic work. Couriers moved through Italian checkpoints carrying information that would earn a bullet if discovered. Albina was 16 years old and she walked through those checkpoints wearing nothing suspicious, carrying everything dangerous. In December 1941, Henningman sent her to Novo Mesto with orders to find work and embed herself. She found employment at a hotel. From that position, she passed leaflets to incoming partisan contacts, memorized drop times and names, and maintained communication lines across Lower Carniola. Every single day, she walked past Italian soldiers who had no idea who she was. In June 1942, an Italian counteroffensive swept through partisan-held territory. The West Lower Carniola detachment was fractured and dispersed. Albina adapted. She moved with the network as it reorganized. In August 1942, in Podstanis, she was admitted into the Young Communist League of Yugoslavia. In December 1942, she was formally enrolled as a soldier. She joined the 3rd Company of the 3rd Battalion of the 1st National Liberation Slovenian Proletarian Strike Brigade, the Tone Tomšić Brigade. The army assigned her as a nurse. She wept from frustration. That is documented. She had not organized resistance for over a year, walked past armed soldiers every day, been wounded and recovered to spend the war managing a medical tent. She pushed back, she pushed forward, and the fighting came to her regardless. Through all of 1942 and into 1943, Albina fought across the Slovenian countryside. In September 1942, she was wounded in battle near Suvaj. She recovered. She returned to the line. On the 21st of January 1943, she was wounded again, this time during an engagement against a White Guard fortification near Zagorica Pricetu. She was hit. She kept going. But the 3rd wound was different. The 3rd wound cost her everything it is possible to cost a person without killing them. September 15, 1943. The Slovenian partisans had been fighting the Siege of Turjak since the 14th. The castle, held by pro-Axis White Guard forces, had been encircled by partisan units. The fighting was close and brutal. Germany had moved forces into former Italian positions across Slovenia following Italy's capitulation earlier that month, and the pressure on every partisan unit had intensified sharply. Near Veliki Oselnik, in the middle of the siege's most savage hours, a mine detonated. It detonated right next to Albina. The blast crossed the left side of her face in an instant. Her left eye was destroyed. Shrapnel carved lines through her cheeks and her forehead. She was 18 years old. She had turned 18 3 days earlier, on the 12th of September. They carried her to the Jelendal Partisan Hospital in Kočevski Rog. The surgeons saved her life. They could not save the eye. She was moved to the Partisan Hospital at Sihaček Aramašenjis, and then further to Žumberak in Croatia. She healed. And then she came back. This is the thing the enemy could never calculate. After Italy's capitulation in September 1943, Germany deployed SS and Wehrmacht anti-partisan units across former Italian-controlled Yugoslav territory. The Waffen-SS was active in Yugoslavia. Snipers were embedded in the ridgelines above partisan movement corridors. They were trained professionals, methodical, patient. They had scopes, range data, and a systematic approach to eliminating guerrilla fighters. They were very good at what they did. And they kept missing Albina Mali. Here is what no German marksman could have been briefed on. Losing an eye changes how a human body moves through terrain. Depth perception collapses. The brain compensates. A person blind in one eye develops entirely new movement habits. They turn the whole head rather than scanning with the eyes. They position themselves differently when they aim. They stop and reorient in ways that are physiologically distinct from a two-eyed target. A trained sniper reads how a target moves. He builds a mental model and fires ahead of the pattern. With Albina, the model didn't work. She moved the way her body had learned to move after Veliki Oselnik. It was unpredictable because it was her own. She also knew those forests the way people know their own kitchens. 3 years of moving through them in all weather, in all seasons, under fire and under occupation. She knew the ground where it dropped, the tree lines where the light shifted at specific times of day, the sounds that did not belong to wind or animals. She returned to active service with the local partisan detachment in White Carniola. She studied at the Communist Party School in Kočevski Rog from May to July 1944. By November 1944, she was stationed with the 8th Dalmatian Corps in Split. By January 14, 1945, she was transferred to a partisan orphanage in Novigrad, continuing her service as the war entered its final months. The girl who had started as a hotel courier in Novo Mesto was still standing, still fighting, still alive. It would be dishonest to call what she lived through anything other than brutal. She was wounded 3 times before the age of 18. Each time she recovered and returned. She carried shrapnel scars across her face for the rest of her life. She carried the absence of her eye every single day. She had nursed men who did not survive their wounds. She had watched partisan fighters, people she had known since 1941, die in fields and forests across Lower Carniola. She had endured the Italian counteroffensives of 1942 and the German sweeps that followed in 1943. She had lived in the forest through Slovenian winters with inadequate food, inadequate shelter, and the constant presence of death. There is a photograph of her from this period. She stares directly into the camera. The scars are visible. The eye that is gone is visible. She does not look broken. She looks like exactly what she is, someone who has decided the world does not get to be rid of her. Albina Mali-Hočevar survived the war. She was 19 years old when it ended. She had started it at 16, carrying messages through Italian checkpoints in Novo Mesto. She ended it as a decorated combatant of the Yugoslav partisan army. In 1946, the government of Yugoslavia awarded her the commemorative medal of the partisans. In 1953, she received the Order of the People's Hero, the highest military decoration in Yugoslavia. Of the 91 women who were put forward for that honor, only 19 were still alive to receive it. Albina was one of the 19. After the war, she studied, she married, she raised 5 children, one of whom she adopted. She held party secretary positions in Krsko and Maribor. In December 1955, she settled in Maribor, where she would live for the rest of her life. She died on the 24th of January, 2001, aged 75. She was remembered in Slovenia as a national heroine. Her photograph is still shared, still recognized, still discussed, that direct, undefeated gaze, the face that carries the full record of what she endured. She began the war as a girl who could see the world through 2 eyes. She ended it as a woman who had stared down everything the Axis could throw at her, and done it with 1. The sniper in the forest never understood why he kept missing her. The answer was simple. She was not the kind of person who could be stopped.